Hi guys, this video is made possible by Nick. Thanks, Nick. He works in the machine shop and he sent me this cylinder head. It's scrapped, but he was just curious how I'd go about repairing it. I've only done a few minor cylinder head repairs. This definitely isn't my area of expertise. I'm more of a sheet metal working guy, but I'm gonna give it a go. So this, I don't know, you guys comment what you think happened. My guess is this was like a forced induction motor and it blew the head gasket out and then just torched through here. I've seen that happen before, but not quite like this, you know. The ones I've seen look more like a plasma cutter cut, but this one, I don't know, it's kind of weird looking. But it windowed out the side. Then I also had in bead blast it because I was curious how it would take a weld. I got several questions about that too, how aluminum will take a weld if it's just bead blasted and not prepped any other than that. And then what else we got on this thing? This is kind of weird. I don't know if this is normal or not in certain scenarios, but the rocker threaded holes, they actually go into the intake ports. Can you see that light in there? All of them. So if you don't have a good seal there, you know, you could possibly be leaking forced air out or oil in, you know. And then Nick also said there's one little hole in an exhaust port, I think, too. Somewhere. Yeah, right in that one. You see that one? That one's probably repairable. If that was all that was wrong with this, I'd probably take it on as a job. But if somebody brought this to me to fix, I'd say, no way, you know. I'd screw with it and try to fix it and maybe not charge them and say, take it and use it at your own risk, but I wouldn't want any liability on it. This exhaust port hole, that wall thickness is probably only about 1/8 inch thick. So you could get away with fixing that with like a 200, 225 amp machine. Fairly easy, I think. But this other stuff where it's more like right on the mass of it, you're gonna want something at least 300 amps, I think, maybe even add a little helium. I'm just gonna do it with straight argon though, see how that goes. First off, you're gonna wanna get in here and die grind a little bit of this roughness off so you can get a good clean weld for your base. And this is my weapon of choice for this hard to reach type of area. You know, to get the backside, you want something with a good radius like this ball so you can get in here and get the whole thing. And then when you're doing this, you want this out just as far as you can. If you stick it out too far excessively, it has more leverage against you, so it'll chatter around. So quick funny story, my buddy about 20 years ago, he had a 65 Falcon and he was porting his own cylinder heads. And he had one, we were using one of those old electric Milwaukee's, big bodied ones with the off on switch in the most asinine spot you could think of, way in the back. And he had this extended way out, and so it had leverage against him, and it started chattering around and it started bouncing off the valve seat. I'm gonna kind of be rambling in this video and sharing my thoughts. Let me know in the comments if it bores you and I should just shut up and work, but I think it's helpful advice. So I was actually a mystery shopper. I was interested in these. I love this brand, by the way. I bought this one without them knowing that I was gonna make videos with it. It's got gear reduction, so it spins slower. I really like it for aluminum because it doesn't clog up as bad. And then they sent me this other one too to advertise for them for free. They're made in the USA. I really like them. One thing I like about them a ton too is you can just use crescent wrenches on them instead of these other little ones, you know, where you have to use their chintzy little stamped steel tools that always flare out on you. So yeah, anyways, really happy with these. Check them out if you're interested. No affiliation. And when you're die grinding in parts like this, you can get carried away not paying attention and start grinding away at your part with this hex, portion if you're not paying attention. So one thing I do, when I used to do EFI conversions on like carbureted intakes, you had to get up and port match the injector bunks on the inside. I would always tape it right here, give it, like wrap it this, I don't know, 20 times. And it's, the thing about this, I like red, because red's high vis, so you can see what you're doing. And then this will give you some added protection, so if you do touch the metal, you don't end up gouging it and having to go repair that later. Let's see how this goes. A little sketchy, but that worked. And then when I'm doing stuff like this, I'm left-handed. I put my right hand down, like if you were shooting billiards, as an anchor point, and just, kind of holding this up here so you can walk it around, keep nice and stable instead of trying to free float in the air like my buddy was doing. First things first, I can't stand these dang things. I know it's a safety feature, but they always get in the way for me, so I'm going to pull that back and TIG weld it flush. Well, that was embarrassing. I thought that was metal. That's plastic. Anyways, moving right along. Okay, repair time now. The question I get asked all the time about welding thin stuff is like how to not blow through. A trick you can do is you can lay the rod down and start your arc on the filler rod, and then just slowly start increasing your amperage, and then let it wet in. Instead of starting your arc and getting it all too hot and it's, you know, melting away from you and then you're chasing it around. There we go. Okay, I got it shimmed up with a block back there, right on the edge of the table, so it's going to be nice and comfortable. More points of contact on the head and on the edge here. And don't put any lube on it. You'll have to be cleaning that crap out later. Just run it dry. Don't run it too fast and hot and clog it up. Just take your time. I had to stop and move the camera back out of the way. I kept skipping out. I needed to move over where the camera was. But yeah, so, you know, if you had an electric grinder, that would be a huge downfall. Like, I like to put a finger under this, so it's a throttle stop. Let you feather it exactly where you want. And then another option for this, you know, is you could get one of these balls with tighter flute spacing. It'll clog up more, but it'll be less prone to grab and hop out. Anybody who tells you they never do that's a liar. Happens to everybody. That's why you just don't push hard and take it easy so it doesn't gouge it too much. And then just come in and clean it back up with the higher RPM grinder. Try to not snag your paper towel and leave a lint behind. Like I said earlier, this is definitely not my area of expertise. You know, if I was doing this type of work, I would definitely get a different torch. I'd probably have to make my own custom one to get in here really nice. This is a horrible angle, but I'll see if there's a workaround I'm thinking of. We'll see if it works. Something like this would be nice, but this is only like a 70 amp torch, and that's still too long this way to get in there. You'd need like custom cups that were smaller. Any of you cylinder head pros out there, feel free to leave in the comments a link of what torch you would prefer to use on something like this. One thing you could do is heat your tungsten up really hot and bend it like I've shown in other videos, you know, bend it at a 90-degree angle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to back purge this with argon gas and flood this whole area and see if, you know, that's going to be enough. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty nasty, but we'll see. Get yourself some heavy-duty aluminum foil. And I only want to fill up this cavity here. Can't really get you a good angle on this, so you'll just have to see the aftermath. Try a little bit bigger cup too. I could have done a little better job cleaning up these pits in the casting, but you got to call it good enough at some point. You know, you're just going to keep chasing them and have an even bigger hole. Okay, so when I start this, I'm going to just trigger it, you know, and then trigger it back off and let the gas purge in here. I'm not started the arc until hopefully I get it filled up with argon. back side, and I'm trying to get it hot and let it sink in so it'll add to the thickness, so I don't build up a hump and then grind it off and then it's thin again. Hopefully that makes sense. And then if it gets too hot and starts sinking fast, I just chop the amperage off. I just hit the switch and turn the arc completely off. Kind of pulsing it. Slowly bring it towards me and let it sink in and build up thickness. It's working out pretty good. I'm getting some black peppering on it and speckles, but it's really not too bad. That's enough gas. I got it flowing like 50 CFH. One really tricky thing about this too, you can see where I accidentally arced the rod over here. So that's going to transfer the heat through the rod and make it turn into a dingleberry. Then you got to take it out, shake it off, or snip it. It's like playing that game Operation when you're a little kid. Getting a little bit thicker up as I go up the exhaust port, so I got to turn the amperage up. I'm going to turn it up to like 175, and then just feather it back if I need to. So I got it all filled in, but I think it's a little bit thin up here. So I'm going to get it hot and just move around on top and let it sink in a little bit, and then add a little bit more rod on top of that to build thickness. Let me get you a good look at this first. A lot cleaner than I thought. Okay, the cool thing about having this opening here is I can actually go in and analyze that and see how good that weld actually sunk in. I'll leave a link below for this endoscope. These things are pretty dang cheap for what you get out of them. I highly recommend having one, if for nothing more than just fun. Pretty nasty casting in there, huh? But I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but it's sunk, you know, it's sunk in pretty good. Like it's fallen through the part, if that makes sense. So there's more thickness there than there is the surrounding area. Up here, right where that little red spot is, though, it's kind of not fused the whole way, but I don't know. That's kind of nitpicking. I think it'd be good enough for a repair. And then just make sure you don't grind through the top too thin when you port match it. And on a small repair like that, it's not that hot. Aluminum has such high thermal conductivity, it just pulls all that heat away. So I wouldn't worry about clamping this part down anyways. You know, as toast as this is, you'd have to resurface it after doing this repair. I'll screw around with this next. I'm going to grind this down, and it's pretty common to have little spots you might need to touch back up with the TIG welder, you know, fill them up and then grind it again flush. And then for the initial part of smoothing this over, I prefer this more Christmas tree shaped one than the ball. The ball you end up gouging in and you have a hard time making a nice smooth surface. Another cool thing about this company that makes these die grinders is they offer them in forward exhaust or rear exhaust. I prefer, for this type of stuff, I prefer the rear exhaust, because if you're down in here, it's pushing the air in and it spits metal shavings right back out in your face. So yeah, rear exhaust for me. Okay, that's about as far as I want to take it with this heavy hogger. So now I'll step down to this. And then you want to get as big of a radius one of these as you can. See how that barely fits in the corner any bigger and you wouldn't be able to get into the corners. And then a tip for it is if you have big ones like this, you can just go put them on a grinding wheel. You can chuck it in a hand drill or your die grinder, spin it real slow. This creates a lot of dust though, but you can shape this to whatever diameter you want it to be in whatever radius, to make it fit perfect in whatever runners or whatever ports that you're trying to match. Back to the high RPM die grinder. Before any of you keyboard commandos tell me I need a bigger air compressor, shut it, because this is what I got. I'm working in a trailer and this is all the space I have. I had a huge shop and a huge air compressor and I'm over that. I don't do that type of work anymore. Die grinding. Okay, that's about as good as it's going to get with this junkie of a casting. You can see in there, there's still some pits over here. I had to come back and touch up one spot right about here and then buff it back down. Add a little bit more fill rod with a TIG welder. But you look over at these other ports and you can see how pitted and nasty this is up here too. So my first thought when I got this was, yeah, well, that one's easy and fixable. But then I was thinking, well, why did that even happen in the first place, you know? So you really got to question stuff like that if you're going to go repair something. You know, you repair this one, and then this one right next to it looks like it might have a similar, let's see if I can get you a better shot here, a similar issue right here with this. See that spot too? I don't know if that's about ready to blow out. So yeah, after looking at this, you know, like, I'm glad I don't do this type of work. There's too much potential for return customers, you know, rework. I think if you came back in with a glass bead blaster though, you wouldn't even be able to tell that was repaired. It'd look the same as the rest of these. You can see little pits in every single one of them. So like I said before, I wouldn't even touch this if a customer wanted this repaired, but I'm going to screw with it just for entertainment purposes. So the outside, you know, you could die grind it and clean it up like I did in here, but another option is to just build it up on the outside. Like if this was a cutaway view of that, this would be your thickness on each side. And before I beveled it out and then filled it in, tried to let it sink in a little bit. This one, you can just come out here and hump it up and then just try to tie it in here and make sure you get good thickness here and here. If you don't want to get down into that filthy stuff. See how dirty that looks in there? And then obviously you're going to have a visible hump out here, but it's not in the way of anything. Okay, when I had Nick send this to me, I asked him to hot tank it. And then I was curious the weld quality difference between just a hot tank and then glass beading the whole thing. So I'm just going to run a bead over this and see if it changes without scrubbing it or, you know, acetoning it or stainless wire brushing it or anything, just out of curiosity's sake. I'm just going to start out here and run a bead through this area between the two, the glass bead and the hot tank. No difference really, the same amount of peppering on top of the weld. I kind of thought the glass bead would make it a little bit cleaner, but guess not. If you want it real clean, you still got to grind into it and get off the surface and then come back over it again once you do that. Okay, this might be a little sloppy because I'm welding directly behind the camera. We'll see how this goes. I normally wouldn't pause and stop this many times, I just keep going, but I'm trying to show you what I'm doing. And when I come around the bottom here where it's thinner, I gotta ramp the amperage back, and then when I start coming around where it's thicker over here and here, I slowly start sliding the heat back on. And now I'm just starting to weave back and forth and fill this last part in. A little bit more right here where it's humped up. Try to smooth that out so it transitions in nicer. Okay, plenty thick, thicker than it was before. And for this big gaping hole, you know, filling this in, when it cools, it's going to try to contract and warp this surface. You're going to have to resurface this no matter what anyways. It'd probably be a good idea to make some sort of thick aluminum block fixture to bolt the head to through the head bolt holes. And then have an opening just around this area, you know, but that's a lot of time and effort to put into this. Okay, check this out. So it's been welding like crap for the past 5 minutes. I didn't understand why. I came over here and it says I've got 500 PSI left of argon. And when I strike the arc, or when I turn my switch on, it goes up to 20. But if I try to make it go any higher than 20, it won't. So my bottle's definitely running out of gas, and this gauge is lying. See, I smacked it, now it's down to 250. This should be able to go up all the way. So that's why it's welding like crap. Time to switch out the bottle. And the way I verified that it was running out of gas is just a quick check. You know, I just ran it on some known clean good sheet with some good filler rod. And that's as good as I could get it to look versus, you know. Okay, I got a brand new gauge on there just to verify, make sure this bottle actually is empty. Crack it. Yeah, see, the needle didn't even move. I guess it was time for a replacement. That thing was probably 15, 20 years old. Okay, I'm out of argon, so I'm going to use this 75-25 mix bottle from 10 years ago and see if it'll still work okay. See if we got any pressure in it. Probably about 100 psi. Okay, a lot better than what it was on that other bottle. Back in action. So the unfortunate thing about this is if you unknowingly run out of gas while you're doing something like this, you probably ought to grind this all back out and start over. Okay, ready for round 2. It's about 100 times better. A little bit low right here still. Okay, from here you'd want to make sure everything's above the surface of the head gasket, flat surface, and then have it resurfaced by a machine shop, and then come in here and touch this back up. But I'm just going to grind it down for video purposes to make it look nice. A little bit off, but you get the idea. Okay, that's enough of that. Hopefully you get the idea. If you're a perfectionist at all, I would not do this type of work. You'd drive yourself insane. These junker castings, See how porous they all are? So you can sit there and just keep chasing your puddle around and it'll keep bubbling and bubbling. You can't get it perfect. I came over here and struck an arc on this combustion chamber and it just started popping bubbles out too. So call that good enough for demonstration purposes. I could have tidied up this edge and matched it a little better, you know, and then this would go get resurfaced, and it probably would be usable and be just fine, but I don't know. I wouldn't put my name on it. Thanks for watching. I almost forgot. Nick also sent me some glass bead blasted aluminum sheet. We were curious on how that would weld, just, you know, without cleaning it at all. So I'll run a few beads on this and see how it looks with no more prep than just the bead blasting. Clean bead, but you get the dark brown or